Okay, here I have this pose and I'm going to draw it as a geometric figure, but of course I'm going to start out at the beginning with a gesture, as always. So you can see I was finding those big relationships first, that big arc across the back. There's some openings there, and I'm just going to work my way around this figure, try and capture a sense of what it feels like in the gesture. Okay, now I'm ready to go in and start drawing the geometric part of this figure. And this is the top, what I am imagining to be the top of the shoulders. So if I were to slice this model right at the shoulders, what would I see? My box would show me the top, kind of like that. I feel like these kind of hunched over a little bit, so I'm going to add just a little bit of bend to this box and a little bit of arc for the ribs. Again, it's not perfect in perspective, but it shows me I can see the top, I can see the front, and I can see a little bit of the side. Right here off to the side, this box in isolation. There's the side, I see a lot of it. I see a lot of the top. I see a little bit of the front. Arc for the ribs. Okay, and what are the hips doing? Well, they're somewhere there. And again, it's just this half sphere, just getting an idea. If I sliced them at the hips, would I be able to see into the top of those? I think I would, so that's an open ellipse on the top of that half sphere to show us that we're up above it. Here's me drawing that using the full sphere. It's a sphere to start out with, and then I just sliced it. Okay, and what's the head doing? It's perched out at the end of what looks to be a C curve to me, just an overall C curve. So there's a sphere for the brain, and then there's this mask I'm going to put on that sphere and add just a little bit of cross marks just to show the tilt a little bit. Right? It's just a sphere with a mask, and then I put a cross marks on that mask. Okay, now I need to figure out the joints. The first obvious one to me is this big shoulder joint right here. Just a big sphere, or circle really. And I'm going to play connect the dots now. Where is the elbow? It's roughly, if I look at the hips, it's roughly there. Something like that. And then also, where's the wrist? Oh, it's like right about there. I kind of take that trip with my eyes, take that trip with my hand. You can see I haven't drawn the arms yet. There's a little bit of hand, just a little flapper for the hand. I haven't drawn the arms yet. I'm just going to put cylinders between these joints. So there's my axis for the cylinder. There's my other axis for the other cylinder. Now, if you remember that draw along exercise, this is essentially the same arm, really. Put an ellipse, another ellipse. Notice they're kind of close to the spheres. They're close to the joints so that I can do some overlapping. The ellipse for the forearm, another ellipse for the wrist. There's the top of the forearm with that S curve. C curve for the bottom of the forearm. That's going to make it feel a little more like a forearm. Yours can just be straight lines if you like. It'll still work. Now I'm drawing this relatively lightly. I'm drawing it a little bit darker so you can see on the video. I've left myself room to come back in and make even darker lines later, maybe with my softer pencil to really show those overlaps off. This one's a cylinder that's coming straight towards me. So it's got a rounder, the ends are more round, like we talked about. It's really important that you draw lightly at this stage. You just want enough there that you can tell what's going on. You want to make your clear statements later in the drawing. Hips, that's a big joint. You'll notice I'm not putting it down below the hips. It kind of comes off the side of the hips. There are anatomical reasons for that we will talk about later. Again, finding the hip, knee, and ankle, and then filling the gaps in between them. I can't reiterate this enough. My line here looks dark compared to the gesture, but it still has room for an even darker line to come in the end and make a clear description of the edges of these forms. For the foot, I'm just imagining a simple flap for that too, kind of like a rectangular whatever. Don't get hung up on hands and feet or faces. I shouldn't see eyes, mouth, any of that. We're just looking at the forms here. So the knee, I have quite a stack of things happening at that knee. There's 2 wrists and a knee there. I'm going to have to be careful to be clear about that later. But I can't help it. I have to put that S curve and C curve for the thigh in there. Just makes it feel more like a thigh to me. Again, yours can be straight lines. It'll still work. You can see I'm not stressing here over the details. What are the toes doing? What is all? Nope. That doesn't matter at this point. Here's where I'm going to go through and look at the overlaps, and I'm going to decide what can I see. And this should take you some time. You have to think about everything that you're doing here. That arm cylinder, I can see the top of it, which means the sphere of the joint is going to be in front of that. It's going to be stacked, overlapping on top of that. I cannot see the bottom because I can see the top. Right? You have to keep track of what your cylinders are doing. I can't see into this end. The sphere of the elbow is behind both of those. I can't see into the front end, so I'm saying my eyes are somewhere in the middle of this arm. If I were to slice that end of the arm, I wouldn't see into it, so I closed it off. And again, as long as you're consistent with your cylinders, it'll be sensible, it'll make sense. Meaning you don't have a cylinder with 2 open ends, or you didn't close your cylinders inwards, you closed them outwards. I'm kind of working from front to back here as well. That's going to help me not make mistakes in overlapping. If I give precedence to things that are in front, I stand less a chance of improper overlaps. If I start at the back, I might draw something too dark, and then I wouldn't be able to overlap it very effectively. You'll notice my hips and chest aren't connected with anything. That is fine. You do have a spine connecting things, but often you can get in trouble if you try to add the spine. Things will start to look stiff again. If you just keep empty space there, they'll seem to belong to each other just because they're close to each other, and it'll make the figure feel like it can move a little bit better. Just a note, you are not to draw this drawing or this pose for this project. I don't want you to just follow along with what I did and just draw after me. You can practice this one if you find it helpful, but do not turn this one into me. As with all things, don't use the example. I want you to find these solutions on your own with a new pose. That's the most important part of this, is that you're able to do this for any pose you encounter. Okay, and that will just about do it for this geometric figure. Things to focus on are the core of the body and what it's doing, the arms and the legs and what they are doing. Don't worry about hands, don't worry about feet, don't worry about faces or facial features. What I want to see you do is 3-dimensionalize the body itself.